Thank you for taking time being with us today. Tell us a little bit more regarding your background and how did you get into real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started investing in 2008, right when the market crashed. The timing
Good,
was
good
perfect.
timing.
Although, yeah, well, at the time, everybody thought I was just crazy because the market crashed and nobody wanted to be investing, and I was gung ho, ready to get
There you
started.
go.
And I saw the opportunity. It made way too much sense for me because when you're looking at a house in the Twin Cities, you're looking at a house and it's let's say $65,000. Maybe you put 20 into it, and you could rent it for 1,400 bucks a month. Well, the numbers work all day on that type of thing. And then also flipping pretty much dried up completely. But I started flipping again, or flipping, I shouldn't say again. I started flipping for the first time in 2009. And again, people thought, geez, like that's the stupidest thing you could ever do because property values are decreasing. So how are you going to make it work? But the margins were just so huge that it didn't matter. Property values could decrease by 10% and you could still make good money. So the numbers just worked great in 2008. So it was a great time to get started. Prior to that, though, I was a high school teacher and taught for about 5 years and just kind of knew it wasn't going to be a career for me. So I was in that, all right, now what do I do? I thought about going back to school and becoming a doctor. That seemed like a lot of work and commitment. Um, and I had some free time because my wife took a job in the Twin Cities. We were in Minnesota, and we were living up in a small town just north of the Twin Cities. And so when she took a job, she was living in the Twin Cities, and I was living up near St. Cloud, this small town, and just got to reading and was reading a lot of books and really influenced me to go, all right, let's look at investing. So that's kind of why I started, and I thought, man, there's a lot of opportunity. My background was strong in construction. I done construction that's how I paid my way through college, and that's what I did in the summers after you're teaching just in the summer. So that's what I did after the school year was over. Did construction.
So,
So
but let me see if I got this right. So you kept your school job as a teacher, but you were doing construction, and then you started flipping in 2008. Is this what you're saying?
yeah, basically. So 2008, I didn't really do any flips. I bought so all at one time, pretty much all within a couple of weeks of each other. I bought a single family house to live in. My wife and I bought that, and that was a foreclosure. Needed to do a bunch of work. And then we bought our first rental house. Now, again, it was another foreclosure. And I guess I did. I bought my first flip. I bought that with a partner because I didn't have any money. I mean, I used all of we used all of our money to buy our personal house and then that first rental. And so I didn't have any money to buy the flip, but I wanted to continue to do business. And so I partnered with somebody. We did the first flip, and we did all of the work, pretty much all of the work ourselves. We were the plumbers. We were everything. And at the end of the day, it was pretty depressing. We made like
And
$1,000
how long
on the whole
and how
thing.
long did the thing work from beginning to end? So looking at a deal and then finishing it and cashing in a whopping $1,000. How long did it take?
It was probably about 6 months, I
6 months.
suppose, from start to finish. Yeah, yeah, it was depressing. So I didn't flip. So that was my first flip. That was in 2008, summer of 2008. And my next flip wasn't until the summer of 2009. And the reason why my next flip came, it wasn't because I wanted to, but it was really because I needed to if I wanted to continue doing business. Because I bought my first rental. When that was done, I did a cash out refi. And that time, there wasn't this 6 month kind of, there's a 6-month period right now, I think it is, where you have to season it. But at that time there wasn't, so I did my cash out refi. I bought then another rental property, and did that one, got different loan terms on that where I didn't have to put too much money out of my pocket, but it cost me, I don't know, like 7-8 grand. Then I did another rental property. Well, at that time, you could only hold 4 properties in your personal name. So I was done. I couldn't hold anymore. I had my personal house and 3 rentals. So I partnered with one other person. He bought 2. He bought his own personal house. He didn't want to buy a third. So I didn't, and again, I didn't have money, and I wanted to continue to invest. I wanted to continue to grow. So the next progression was, okay, let's go back and see if we can flip again. So I did that. I actually bought 3 properties all at one time and flipped 3 at once, which is, I did all the work myself, or most of the work myself.
How do the numbers look to you when you're looking at a deal and you have a deal across the table? How do you make the numbers work? What is it that you're looking for? Let's say both of us are together, have a couple of deals across the table. What are you looking for that interested you, and then you start pulling the trigger because it makes sense?
Yeah, so when I first started, it was really pretty simple. I didn't have a specific, I guess I had a formula, but it wasn't like a percentage where you hear people saying 70% of ARV, and I don't flip a lot anymore, so I really don't.
No,
flip.
no. What I mean is not about the flips. I mean the properties that you hold for investment. That's what I meant.
Oh,
that's what I meant,
okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. So when I was doing a lot of single families and small duplexes, I needed to say it's got to cash flow at least $300 a month for a single family. And I take everything into account. You know, I add a replacement reserve in there. I add a 5% replacement reserve. I include 10% for my vacancies. So I add a lot of slush in there. I also add a management fee, a 10% management fee. And it's got a cash flow of $300 after my mortgage.
And this is a value add. Is this a value add play? Let's say from a C to B type of thing.
Yeah. So all my smaller rentals were actually everything I've ever owned has been a value add. So taking a property that's a complete wreck, completely vacant, and bringing it up to livable condition, and a nice livable condition. Even in my C-class areas, I probably bring it up to like a B-class property, which is maybe a little overkill. But I've always had the philosophy, if I want to make my properties bulletproof, so I put in some little extra things, like I'm going to tile in the kitchen and the bathroom versus just do the cheaper flooring, because I think that's going to last, a lot longer. If you look at a lot of the rental properties built in like the 60s, they tiled all the showers in the back, the backsplashes, the floors, all that kind of stuff. And that's still, it might be ugly and outdated, but it's still in good condition in most cases. So I tried to make them bulletproof on all mine. But yeah, so when I was looking at single families, duplexes, I'm looking at $300 a property, $300 a unit if it's a duplex. Now in my multifamily, it's a little different. It's all based on, I shouldn't say all based, but a lot of it's based kind of on the cap rate. And based on what's in the area. So kind of what I look at is I'm doing value add deals. And when I'm looking at a deal, I'm looking at buying a property in, let's say, a B-class area that the market cap rate is 6.5%. I'm okay coming in and buying that at a 6% or a 6.5%, but I want to make sure there's enough value to be added to where when I'm done with it at the end of the day, I'm going to be at least 1% over market cap rate. So I'm going to be at least at a 7.5%. And it depends on how much lifting there is.
But you're looking for stabilized properties, right? Like in the upper 85, 90% occupancy.
Not necessarily. I like those. I for sure love, those are great. But no, right now I've got a property. It's a C-class property or C-class area. an F property. I had to completely remove all the tenants. It was one of those cockroach infested, all that kind of stuff. So we had to remove all the tenants, unsafe to live in, and renovated all 20. It was just 20 units, so renovated all 20 units, and then placed tenants back into it. But that type of deal, I'm getting for extremely cheap. I bought those 20 units for $180,000.
And what makes you think, from an investor perspective, what makes you think you look at a property, you're not going to get stuck with a liability that you cannot get tenants in it, and the cost of getting that thing up to market would be kind of catastrophic for your pockets? What makes you think you can actually pull it off and make sense from an investor perspective?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you have to look at it, if you're going to do that, where you're doing major renovation like that, and you're kicking out all or most of the tenants, you got to look at it in almost a developer's eyes, where what is the market doing? Where are we at for occupancy? What's our time on market when we list this? So we got to look at everything. How long is our lease out phase going to be? What's the appetite? Is the market really looking for your product? So you can't just look at it as if you're fully stabilized or mostly stabilized. Well, then it's simple. Then we do small turns
Sure.
But if I'm essentially on that property, I'm a developer. I'm not building from the ground up. My cost is still way lower than a developer, but I've got to look at it in the eyes of a developer, where is there really that appetite for my product? Am I going to be able to lease the thing out? So yeah, you're looking at the demographics, you're looking at the numbers, the vacancies, all that kind of stuff to determine, can it happen.
And how long did it take you from, in that property, what's your estimate that is going to take you to actually get the units with people in it and start cash flowing for you?
Yeah, so right now, I purchased the property end of April, I believe it was. Right now we are about 95% done with the construction. Of the units, I've got 16 units completely finished, and the remaining units are being finished. So we've got most of it done. We began the lease out phase. So right now we have 5 units leased out of the 20. We have applications on a few other of the units. So it looks like by the end of this week, we're hoping for between 7 and 8 leased out. I'm expecting the lease out phase at least to get to that 85%, 90%. I'm expecting that to happen hopefully by September 1st, and that might be a little optimistic because, well, you still got to lease out a lot of units. But we've only been advertising for a short time, and we've already got 5 placed. It looks like potentially 8 coming very soon.
And
so
to do a project like this, I would like to focus our attention on teams. What is the team requirements in order to pull this off? Regarding contractors, you need a bunch of realtors, you need a property management. Can you run us through this a little bit?
Yeah, so this project, by the way, is an out-of-state project for me. So I have to jump on a plane to get there. So teams, that's really important for me. So the team that I have assembled is, first to find the deal was through a broker. The deal was a receivership deal, forced foreclosure basically by the city on this property owner. This realtor that I had been communicating with a lot brought this deal to me, and I ended up getting the deal completely through her. The property manager I'd been using on some of my other properties in the area, but again, he's a critical part because he's making sure that the project's actually getting done, and that we can actually truly execute our plan. And when I was looking at buying this property, there was a lot of communication with him. Do you think we can execute this plan? How long do you think the lease out phase will take? Those are critical questions, and a lot more critical questions that you need to talk to your property manager about to make sure that he's comfortable taking on that type of project too. And then the contractors, we had previously used on a couple value add deals that we'd previously done, but getting those contractors is extremely important. And contractors are probably the hardest part of the business, and I know that by flipping. I mean, I flipped probably 150-ish, I don't know how many properties. I've flipped a lot of properties through the years, and contractors are the hardest to deal with. There's a lot of contractors out there that are willing to take your money if you're willing to give it to them.
You gotta pay attention.
Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely the hardest part, and those are the people that you need to be able to get rid of the quickest as well. Making sure you're staying on top of how much you're paying them, and making sure that the property manager understands the payment, because my property manager is actually paying the contractors. So I've got to make sure that when he's paying these contractors, he's not overpaying them. And that's easy for him to do, because if it's not his money. So, you want to make sure that everybody is lined up. I guess the other important part of the team is your attorney and your title company, and those can be 2 and 1 depending on your location. But the attorney and title companies are extremely important to make sure that everything's in line. We actually almost closed on this property. I flew into town, I think it was the end of March, and got to town and was driving to the closing when I got a phone call from the attorney saying, you can't close on this property today. And I'm going, great, I just got a plane ticket. I came to town specifically to close on this property and go through the property with my contractors and all that kind of stuff. But it was because of an issue that if we closed on the property, it was still in a period of time where the old owner of the property could claim his rights back to the property and basically fight to get it back. The likelihood of that happening was really like almost nothing.
Yeah,
the attorney and the title company that I talked, I mean, almost nothing. You know what? It's not worth it, because you just said almost nothing. It's nothing. And so it's like, I'm not going to be out $180,000 because of a 0.01% chance. That's too big of a risk for me. So on that, they both said, we've never seen anybody do that, take the property or be able to take the property, but it could happen. And that was enough for me to say, all right, we're not going to close. Yeah, you have to be smart with it. And I used other people's money on the deal. I used a private money, partner. So you've got to, make sure you're protecting their money as well. Yes.
The real estate market in the US makes sense, but in Europe, It does not. It's way overtaxed. I'll give you an example. If you were to do just some investment property in Germany, you will be taxed at a 40% capital gains, even though it's an income property. So, and there's no appreciation, and there's no way from the income that you get from the tenants that you will be able to pay the mortgage, because the rates are extraordinarily high, and there's all sorts of bureaucracy and taxes. It's a mess. If you want to invest in real estate, you go where the market's already in place, and you use players and people that you can trust. But my question for you is you've obviously built a proven track record. You have lots of experience. You have everything in place. What I wanted to understand is, when you live in the middle of nowhere, like in Europe, and you wanted to go into the US and say, this is a good deal, I want to invest in real estate, but how would you go about in doing it? Because you don't know the difference between street A and B. You have no partners. You don't have anything really. So you wouldn't be trusting a turnkey company. So you have to have someone that has his or her best interests aligned with yours. So what I wanted to ask you is, from your end, how would you go about in doing this?
Yeah, I think that's a great, phenomenal question, and that's actually kind of plays into what I do. I invest. I've been investing out of my state, so not quite across a whole um, sea, but I invest outside of my state. So the areas that I'm investing in are not within a small drive. I can't take a quick train to it. I can't, there are ways I have to take a flight, or it's a full day, complete day drive. But so I think the important part is actually meeting and communicating with the person, and whether it's through a format like this, or it's face to face. Of course, face to face is best, but that's not always the option. So just meeting and having a dialogue like this is really important, to be able to see somebody. I think looking somebody in the eyes is really important versus just on a phone call.
Sure.
I can pick up my cell phone and call somebody, and people can really just talk a good talk, but meeting them and seeing them in person I think tells a lot of the story as well. If you're going to be from Europe and invest in your dollars in the U.S., there's a couple ways I think that you can be successful in doing it, and one would be to put your money with somebody that is already doing the deal. So, working a syndication, of course. So that's one way. Of course, that's going to be that passive. You don't have any control because the sponsor does. If you want to have that control, you want to actually own that asset and control it, then to me it's really important to actually probably take your plane, or take a plane and fly into the U.S. and meet with the brokers that you need to meet, with the property managers that you need to, and do that. At the very, very least, I think you need to have a Skype call, several Skype calls. First, I guess the most important part is you got to pick your market, and then pick your niche and decide what you want to focus on. So the U.S. obviously has so many different markets and opportunities. If you say, well, I want to invest in the U.S., well, what's that really mean? Do you want to invest in San Francisco? Okay, great. If you can invest in San Francisco, you're going to get really low returns on your investment. You might have the same problem as you have in Europe. You're not going to make much money. If you want to invest and get a lot of money, you can invest in a place like, let's say, Kansas City or St. Louis. You're going to get good cash flow, but you might have problems because those cities have problems at times. So you got to decide what's your pain threshold, what are you really looking for, and I don't know. I mean, as far as the relationship building, it's just all about. Unfortunately, it's about trust and trying to vet those people. But I think so. When I go into a new market, I'm talking with the brokers first, the real estate brokers first, and I'm trying to meet with 5, 6, maybe 8 real estate brokers, and trying to get a feel for them. And then I'm asking them for referrals. I want referrals from them for property managers, for contractors, for lenders, all that kind of stuff, for attorneys. And what you'll find is you're going to find out of those 5 to 8 people you interview, the same names will start popping up.
Gotcha.
And so those are good then resources to go to and to call. And once you call those people, I do the same thing. Hey, who are the good, let's say I'm calling a property manager. Who are the good contractors? Who are the good real estate brokers? Who are the good attorneys? And you continue to do that on down the line. I think asking for referrals is wildly important for your success, because people want to refer good people. Sure. I mean, think about you. You're not going to go and refer some guy that scammed you to one of your friends. Sure. You're just not going to do it. So that's really important, is getting those referrals. And then also with those real estate brokers, a lot of them are pretty honest with you. Some of them just want to sell you. Um, and so they're not going to be honest. They're going to tell you that the market is phenomenal and you can make a ton of money and invest in this C-class, D-class property because you're going to make so much money just because they want to sell it to you because they think you're gullible. But here's one suggestion I would say is find the brokers that you think are trustworthy, and then when you have a deal and you think I'm going to buy this thing, call another broker that didn't represent that deal and ask them about the deal. And they will be, because they have no monetary commitment to that deal.
Gotcha.
So they will be honest about that deal. And same with your property manager. You know, you need to talk with them. What do you think about the deal? Same with your contractor. What do you think about that area? Contractors are good because they go into a lot of different areas. So they might say, look, go ahead and buy in that area, but I'm not going to work there because it's way too dangerous. So I think it's really about cross-referencing.
What I also wanted to understand is when you're starting out, at least from my other businesses, it's always the same thing. They need to look at you and say, this guy has done it before, even if it's on a small scale, and he's proven the model. Now he wants to take a larger leap. So let's get in with this guy because he kind of knows what he's doing and is all over the place and has experience. So same thing here. Since we are starting this model of, okay, we are sitting here in the middle of nowhere in Portugal, it's a nice city, but no real estate. We want to get into real estate, want to invest.
Yeah.
So you would start alone first, right? Or you would start immediately trying to get other people's capital in order to get there. Because I've done that before. It usually doesn't work because they need to see a track record first.
Yeah. Yeah. Here, and the other thing is, brokers get a lot of phone calls from people from out of the country, from out of state even, and until they meet you face to face, they're really not going to trust you. That's not to say you can't get a deal. You might be able to get a deal. You're just not going to get the good deals. Sure. You're going to get the leftovers that kind of already 200 people have passed on. And you know what though? That might be okay for some of the people that are wanting to invest because they just want to get their first deal, especially if it's, let's say you picked out a market that you really like and you want to buy in, well, let's just use my hometown, Minneapolis. You want to buy in Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's the market you're going to pick. So if you go and buy in Minneapolis and buy just a deal that everybody else has passed on, but it's only let's say it's a small deal, $500,000 deal, $500,000 deal. Okay, so everybody else passed on that. You buy it just to get yourself in the market. Now you can you're going to cash flow on it. You're going to make money, but it might not be a home run. But now you can use that deal as a catalyst to buying larger, better deals. And so sometimes buying just a smaller deal that's not that great but works is not a bad thing if you want to get in the corridor and actually get the deals done.
Yes.
So I wouldn't discount that.
So you would look. You're always saying about looking for the money you're looking for the deal. So you always want to look for the deal first. But you are seeing this from your perspective when you are starting, let's say a single family. Even if you were interested in multifamily, you would do a single family first, even if it's a small thing, just to prove the model for other future investors.
No.
Okay.
If your goal, okay, let's say your goal is to buy 100+ unit properties.
That's the goal. That's exactly the goal.
Okay. So if your goal is to buy 100+ unit properties, I would not buy a single family because that means nothing to a broker. Okay. But what I would do is if there's a deal out there that the numbers work, but it's not your ideal property. Okay. But the numbers do work. You go, I could buy this. I just want to get my name out there as I'm a serious buyer. It's a deal you could buy, but I wouldn't. If you're going to buy 100 unit, I'd say 20 unit should be probably your minimum. and that gets your name out there as, okay, this guy is actually serious. He has properties.
Okay.
Because once people see that you're committed to the area, now they start to trust you. If you're just coming from Europe and you have no commitment to the area, why am I going to trust you? Why am I going to spend time with you?
Sure.
You're just out there tire kicking. You're on a vacation and you want to use up my time, so you can go look at some properties. But if you already have a 20-unit building, well, now you're serious. Now I know this guy is actually buying. He's committed to the area. He has a 20-unit and he wants now he wants a 100-unit. So now he can be cemented into the area. Okay. Now you're a lot more serious. So I'm not telling your listeners to go out and buy a bad deal just to get a deal. What I'm saying is you can buy a base hit. You can buy just a deal that does okay, it cash flows. It works, but it's not that great investment. It still makes you money.
Okay, gotcha. So regarding this, where do you see the future of your company going? So you've built a lot of assets. Where do you see yourself going in the future?
So my company's goals are to continue to acquire properties, and we're looking at wanting to build a portfolio within the next 10 years of $200 million in real estate assets.
Okay, and it's within the area that you live, or it's all outside? You're always looking for specific markets, or?
So I look in specific markets. So over the last like two years, so I faced flip years ago. I was doing a lot of single house flips, and then I always was building my rental portfolio, but now I'm very serious about building my rental portfolio. So I started researching markets across the U.S., markets that have a lot of good potential. So in the Twin Cities, we're fairly compressed with our returns. Our returns are pretty low. So I'm looking at markets that have a little higher returns and have potential for growth. Now, I'm not counting on the growth. I would love it to happen, but the most important part is that it's got good cash flow and good fundamentals where that's not going to go away. So right now I'm investing in several markets across the U.S. and looking at many markets across the U.S. Now, with that being said, if there's a good deal that happens in the Twin Cities, I will buy it.
And also for the development deals, you still hold a part of your attention to it, or it's only the passive thing?
So it's only the passive thing. Now I'm like this 20 unit that I talked about earlier. I will still buy those types of deals, but the goal for that is that's a development essentially in the start, but it's going to become a passive hold. So that I'll keep for 5 to 7, 10 years. So yeah, it's mostly just buying multifamily. The goal is to start buying more closer to that 100 unit where you can have scale. You could have your on-site manager, and you can build up. So.
And finally, where can our listeners get a hold of you and get in contact with you if they need further information?
Yeah, they can send me an email. Definitely open to responding to emails. Email address is Todd, Todd, at Sterling Group, MN, like Matt, Nancy.com. So it's Todd at SterlingGroupMN.com. You can get a hold of me anytime there. I'm also on Bigger Pockets. If your listeners go on to Bigger Pockets, they can always look me up, and I'm also on LinkedIn. They can look me up, Todd Dexheimer, Dexheimer. It's kind of one of those crazy German names. So they can look me up on LinkedIn. We actually have a Dexheimer wine, a couple of wineries in Germany. Okay. So
actually, one final question. As you know, I'm a bookworm. I love reading, so I like to change book lists with people that I'm quite fond of. So, what are you reading lately? What are the books that you like the most lately?
Yeah, so I just finished, probably one of my favorite books right now is How to Win Friends and Influence
Dale
People.
Carnegie.
I love it. I love it. So it's just, to me, it gets you into that right spirit and right mindset. So I really like that book. For real estate investing, my favorite book is Multifamily Millions, by David Lindahl. So those are to me great books. I love books too. I mean, you can learn so much from them. That's how I learned how to invest in real estate, quite frankly. I mean, just reading books.
And that, finally, if you were to go back and talk to your younger self and give him the most important advice regarding the investment career, what would you say?
Oh boy, that's hard.
I know.
You try not to dwell on the past, of course, but I would say take more action. And yeah, take more action. I was just talking to my wife the other day. I've got properties in a part of town. Not even take more action, take bigger action. Because when the real estate crash happened, now I was just a beginner, but when I look back, I could have done a lot more. There was so much opportunity. And so what I was just about to say is, my wife and I, we were talking, I've got a property it's northeast Minneapolis, which is kind of our arts district, in a really trending up area. And I only bought a couple properties there, and I just kicked myself because there was so much opportunity to buy small apartment buildings there, duplexes, all kinds of properties. And had I done that, I mean, holy cow, it's just, the rents when I started, for instance, on a 2-bedroom were $750. Now they're $1,275 on that same 2-bedroom. So, and I knew it at that time when I was investing. I knew that area was the place to be, but I just didn't take the action. And you can always look back, and I don't dwell on it because I think I did pretty well for where I was. But yeah, taking massive action, and calculated, of course, I think is invaluable.
Yeah, but not get stuck on the analysis paralysis, right?
Yeah, too many people, and I do it myself, is you analyze, and you don't take that action, don't take that step to actually buy the thing. And you have that fear, you always have that fear of what if, what if the market, I can remember even when the market was at its lowest points, I'm going, well, what if it goes down again? And it's, when you look back, it's like, well, if it went down again, who cares? Because you were cash flowing. The numbers still worked. Even if the property value goes down by another $20,000, the numbers still work. And so who cares? So yeah, you have to look and think about, what do you have? And if it's a good deal, buy it. Don't overanalyze it. Don't do the analysis paralysis and wait forever.
Well, it was wonderful having you with us today. I hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.